You see, this word, O you prophet, this is a clue that it's just, there's a lesson to learn from it as a history, as a historical event. Things that happened during the prophet's time. But they needed those rules also in those days, for a few hundred years. That these rules apply applicable to war specifically. In our case, we derive the general principles. Right? Why will women or men secret mutual?
Well, I'm just saying it would be like the first if they will not do this. Saying, it's like some people just do something.
No, okay, I understand now what you're saying. See, verse 12 is the testing process. This is how you test them. This is the title of the surah. Tested a woman. So, if a woman comes and joins the believers in war, this is how you test them. You make them pledge that they will not idolize, never set up idols besides God, nor steal, nor commit adultery, nor kill their children, nor invent any falsehood, nor disobey the Prophet's righteous orders. So this was the testing process. Which criteria? How do you test it? This is how you test it. Do you pledge you never set up idols besides God? Yes. Do you pledge you worship God alone? Yes. You pledge. So this is how we decide not to send them back to the disbelievers in the case of war. Philip? I'm glad you brought that up. This is a very important statement because it says, "Oh, you prophet." And as you know, the Sunnis claim that you must obey the Prophet, whatever he says. This tells us that not all his orders should be obeyed, only his righteous orders, or the good things that he says. That he can say wrong things. And I have this in the book, Quran, Hadith and Islam. It is one of the strongest proofs against Hadith and Sunnah. Is that your question?
Yes.
Very good point. I wanted to test this, but unless it came out. It is Surah 61.
Okay. The column. In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. Glorifying God is everything in the heavens and the earth. He is the Almighty, most wise. O you who believe, why do you utter what you do not do yourselves?
It's like the invention of Hadith. And the list of prohibitions, the lies about God. What's more, even the fellow who came to save me, his wife, you could see only her glasses, which was completely covered, and she would not utter a voice because they teach them that the voice is like being naked. That's what they teach. So she just couldn't talk. Yes, completely covered with hot on that day. It was 95 or something outside. She was, this is really mistreatment. So this is inventing lies because her husband told her that this is the way you're supposed to dress. Who is more evil than one who invents lies about God? And he's telling her, God tells you this is the way you're supposed to do. So it's unfair. It's so unfair.
Okay. Verse 8.
Right. The miracle of the Quran is coming out. God
is mentioning the number 19, one of the greatest miracles in the Quran, and they speak the language that the Quran was revealed in their own language. They can't see it.
Yeah, they were stuck in the first letter of the Quran. They go to the S. And while stuck in the book, God put the Rakam under the feet and turned the miracle into numbers completely. So now they're stunned. They really are. They don't know what to do. They're completely silent. Not a sound. There's so utter silence. After all these numbers came out. So this is a perfect example of God perfecting His life. Also it has to do with verse 9. Because I assure you the whole world will be Muslim in about 50 years. Because of the mathematical facts that are coming out of the Quran. So as pioneers, you better familiarize yourself with these physical facts. You see these numbers in the verses on the, look at the page 396, for example, you see verses 1 to 14. In one of the mathematical miracles of the Quran, you put these numbers 1, 2, 3 next to each other. Somewhere in the line, these numbers put next to each other at the complete number is a matter of 19. The number of digits themselves is a matter of 19. So these are the factors that will make Islam prevail over all religions. Give the miracle 50 years and the whole world will be Muslim. I'm talking about true Muslim. And this journalist keeps writing that these are the true or right Muslims. She repeated it so many times in the newspaper. We didn't tell her that. She just did it on her own. No. She invented the name on her own.
That's what she thinks to differentiate when it talks to her.
Big difference.
So of course Muhammad is a messenger too.
Yeah, but
The Prophet and the messenger. But more important is that God didn't say whose name is Muhammad.
right.
Why? And Muhammad's name is mentioned in there.
This is referring
You have to look up the mathematics of the appendix to becoming the new translation. Because there are many mathematical relations here, there's no time to mention all of them. And they will be detailed in appendix 2 of the new translation. Yeah, verse 13 is telling us that you don't have to wait for the day of judgment to enjoy the benefits. You can draw the benefits now. You have a perfect life now. Guaranteed victory, health, wealth, here, in this life. That's very important. And I think, again, we will not speculate if we are living this experience. We know that I published all over the Muslim world that hadith is satanic, innovation. And I have it printed here since 1982 in the brown book that is widely distributed. It's been summarized in many newspapers and criticized and reviewed. But what happened to Salman Rushdie didn't happen to me. Because you see, he's in hiding, he's afraid, he has all these people up in arms, and he didn't say half as much as I did. So, but we live these experiences, because God's word is true. How do you explain that? Except by the word of God. We have to thank God, alhamdulillah. We don't just have any ideas. However, it doesn't matter, even if he gets ideas. Remember that you have an invisible giant standing next to you, and it's not just a giant. It's a giant who can hold the whole earth in one hand. So if somebody is plotting against you in Stockholm, Sweden, your giant will be there, taking care of them, just as they plot and scheme. It is true, you got to believe, because it's mathematically proven in the Quran. And this is the importance of verse 13. We're told that you do your part. Your part in 11 is you believe in God and His messenger and struggle in the cause of God with your properties and your lives. This is your part. Getting up for the morning prayer before sunrise, this is striving. You devote yourself to God. That's your part. Now God's part is overwhelmingly far better than our part. God will give you eternal happiness, and then verse 13 telling you this begins here and now or forever. Back to that 14. No, that's what I'm talking about. That's what this verse is talking about. It happens automatically. All your resources, everything will be dedicated to God. What happened with Job was Satan said that if you take Job's properties, he will blaspheme against you. Job and Solomon are mentioned together as the two extremes of testing. And again, this is something that doesn't happen now. It's a new era. But it's an example of test and believing in God under all circumstances. being devoted to God under all circumstances. So striving with your life and your properties in the cause of God is something that happens automatically upon understanding who God is and why you are here and where the provisions come from. They belong to God anyway. So it's an extreme example of tests that was okay in those days. He was restored anyway. Everything was restored and twice as much. So this is to make us understand when we lose something small. It's not. But everything will be restored and twice as much. So Satan may say, Robert will blaspheme if you destroy his car. Again, and God will tell Satan, okay, go take his RX-7, but you cannot touch him. So he took your RX-7, but he couldn't touch you. That was a miracle, by the way. When Robert's car was forced under a truck, and after he left the car, he wondered how he was alive in there. That was really miraculous. And this is a perfect example. So this is what happened to you is what happened to Job. And of course, God gave you a better car later on. Yeah, you think how it came to you? It has to be God who gave you that. That's a perfect example. You like your new car better than the RX-7? See? It's exactly Job's story. Any other questions?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. We seek refuge in God from the rejected devil. In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. We are tonight, inshallah, is going to be in Surah 87, entitled The Most High. Glorify the name of your Lord, the Most High. He creates and shapes. He designs and guides. He produces the pasture, then turns it into light hay. The title of the surah is The Most High, and we see in verse 1 that we are commanded to glorify the name of God, the name of our Lord. And this is a reminder also, which I think is never enough. We have to keep remind ourselves that we have to remember God every chance we got. There was a very good explanation, and when I watched that program, I said, I wish Rashad was there to explain this thing, because there was one moment where one professor of biology from University of California stood in front of this group, and this group of Institute of Creation Research was represented by one PhD also in biochemistry, graduated from the same school Rashad graduated, University of California, Riverside. So it was very interesting, but he brought the argument up to the point and then he couldn't further it. But if he had heard that, what Rashad gave in the footnote, that would be very interesting. Because at one point that professor of biology from UC Berkeley said, we are 99% similar to the apes. That's what Rashad mentioned also. 99%, and that's very close, But we know that based on what we learn here, 99% similar means there's 1% difference. And 1% difference represents 1% of 300 billion nucleotides that form the genes, which they say, the evolution says the same. And that is 3 billion. And you have 3 billion combinations. And we know that 84 combinations is 0. The probability is 0 that you have a certain combination having 84 items. And we are talking here about 3 billion nucleotides. And so, based on theory of probability, that's 0. But unfortunately, in that program, this PhD from UC Riverside didn't say that. He just said, well, there's still a chance and this and that. So basically, I would say that this discussion will be further, in the future, that God willing, most people will grab the idea and then will see that even though the evolution is also a fact, because God says, and we learn from the Quran, that God creates. And in terms of our scale, then the creation undergoes evolution. And this will merge the two theory and will bring the Quranic light into the discussion of creation and evolution. He creates and shapes. He shapes because God knows the need of every individual, every living being that He creates. One example that was shown in that program was there was a species of bird who lives in a remote island and eventually evolved into many different, within the same species, they look different. The beak, one of them is longer, one of them is shorter. The longer beak because they need to get, the nectar from the flower and all that. So they say they evolve according to the need, but we know that God knows the need of each individual, and then He creates over time the changes in that shape of the beak, for instance. And so, when we see that example, we wonder about that example, and we say, well, immediately we remember God, and we go back to the verse before that, verse number 1. We glorify God, we say, Alhamdulillah, Subhanallah, when we see that program. But most people who believe in evolution, who do not believe in God, they say, well, it evolves, the brain or the bone in the back becomes smaller and smaller and smaller, and over 1,000 years or 10,000 years it becomes, smaller, and the jaw becomes larger and all that. But we know that all that is designed by God, and we say, Alhamdulillah. So is it? Edip, say something. It's facing you now, so you have to say something. Overwhelming. This is the title of Surah 88. In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. Are you aware of the overwhelming? Faces on that day will be shamed, laboring and exhausted, suffering in a blazing hellfire, drinking from a flaming spring. They will have no food except the useless variety. It never nourishes nor satisfies hunger. Other faces on that day will be full of joy, satisfied with their work in an exalted paradise. In it no nonsense is heard, in it the spring flows. In it luxurious furnishings and drinks made available, and pitchers in rows, and carpets throughout. Are you aware of the overwhelming? This is another word or terms that is used in the Quran to describe the Day of Judgment. We've seen in the previous surahs. I think we can go back, even though we have done it probably 2 weeks ago. I can quickly go back to Surah 82, 81. I think 81 and 82 started with the description of the on the Day of Judgment. 82 says, when the heavens is shattered, the planets are scattered, the oceans are exploded, the graves are opened. Every soul will find out what caused it to advance and what caused it to regress. Similar expression in Surah 81. When the sun is rolled, the stars are crashed into each other, the mountains are wiped out, the reproduction is halted, the beasts are summoned, the oceans are set aflame. These are all overwhelming. I mean, these are heavy events. And this will happen in front of everybody. In other words, there will be a real terror on that day. A real terror for most people is a real terror, except for the believers, because God says that He will send the angels to protect the believers from the event of that day. But this is the beginning of the day of eternity. So this is the day that will have no end. This is the day that will have, how would I say it? It's an eternal day, so there is no end to it. It started with all this destruction of the universe, as we know from all these verses I read from 81 and 82. What happened will be the implosion of the universe. Now we know the universe started with a big bang, and we are now still quote unquote explode. We are moving away from each other. I mean, we are in the same solar system, and the solar system is part of the galaxy. But the galaxies are actually moving away from each other, because we are now still, if we think of a bubble, of a balloon, we are riding in the skin of a balloon, and as the balloon is, we blow into the balloon getting bigger and bigger, and every point in that surface is getting farther apart. On the Day of Judgment, the opposite will occur. Everything will come back as if somebody is pulling it, and will crash. We will crash into each other, and that's why the star crash and the sun is rolled, and the planets disperse. Those are all the description of the overwhelming. Ocean explodes, or ocean is set aflame. I remember something that I read from a theology book recently, that in 1883, most of you probably have heard of Mount Krakatoa. It is actually a small mountain in the middle of the sea, really. But when it exploded in 1883, the whole caldera collapsed. And we know what a volcano is. Volcano is actually a plug to the hot magma chamber. So when a volcano forms, it really actually separates the magma chamber from the surface. So when that mountain exploded, the whole thing collapsed, and billions of tons of seawater come straight into the magma chamber, and the result is a tremendous explosion that was heard 5,000-6,000 miles and caused 3 years of winter in the northern hemisphere. It's a very tremendous occasion. And the Day of Judgment will be like God says, the mountains are all wiped out. So it will be a Krakatoa on the grand scale. The whole universe. We're talking about just the Earth, but actually this is the whole universe.
Verse 17. I was watching a program on television entitled Ship of the Desert. Some of you all may have seen it. I'd like to share some of the characteristics of the camel. It's fascinating. One of the reasons why people suffer or die in the sand or desert is because they can't step. You can't put your feet on anything solid. Every time you step, your feet, they just sink in the sand. So Allah constructed the shape of the camel's foot. So when he steps, his feet do not sink in the sand, but they actually lay on top of the sand a few seconds to give him the stability, or the animal the stability to walk. That's one attribute of the camel in terms of the shape of its feet. Another one is that during the sandstorm, a camel can close its nostrils. So no sand would breathe in its nose, and it has an alternative air source. So, here we are out here, we got these devil storms and sandstorms, and we're rolling up windows on cars, and all a camel does is this. Just keeps going,
Without the finger.
Right, without the fingers. I mean, without fingers. And, sitting up, you can't help but say, alhamdulillah, watching this program is just incredible. And so it closes its nostrils. Everybody else is taking blankets and everything, covering themselves. Another one is that the hair on the body is primarily just a little hair over the top and right over the sacs, to reflect some of the heat, to prevent the water from evaporating. So these are some of the characteristics. And now people have these Land Rovers. I mean, can you think of all the mechanical engineers who were trying to design vehicles to go long distance over the deserts? No one can design like Allah. Camel closes its nostrils, able to put its feet on the ground and what have you. I thought I'd share it. It was fantastic watching that.
I think there was another thing about the camel's milk. What do you know?
Yeah, the milk, when the camel dehydrates, it takes about 57 days for the camel to deal without water. And when it dehydrates, every animal, like cows, for example, when they dehydrate, you take their milk. The milk is so salty and it's undrinkable after it dehydrates. But the camel's milk stays the same from the first day to the 57th day. The milk, the consistency of the water and nutrition always the same. Also, they have when it dehydrates, all animals, when they dehydrate, if we take water, when we take fruit, the cell cannot hold all that water at the same time the cell explodes. And you will die unless you take water slowly. the camel can take 400 gallons of water, and the cells will come back rapidly the way they were. Without floating. That's amazing.
Is everybody here? Back? No? Okay, camel is the only animal whose milk, when the animal dehydrates, like the other cows or something, their milk becomes salty. So salty you cannot drink it. But the camel's milk, the contents, it stays the same for 57 days. I guess that's one of the reasons that that's 57 days. So, for a long period of time, still they can drink the milk. The other thing Muhammad is saying, when we dehydrate, if we drink water real fast, then our cells will explode because they cannot take the water. But camel is not like that. God designed such a way, even when the animal dehydrates, can drink as much as 400 gallons of water, and his cells will be in the same shape, will hold the water. So that's why God mentioned camel. That's also a scientific miracle because they didn't know anything about this camel. The only thing you know that camel can go over the desert, but they didn't know so complex things about camel at that time. Any other comments? Ready? You have a comment?
Night, dawn. In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful, by the dawn and the 10 nights, by the even and the odd, by the night as it passes, a profound oath for one who possesses intelligence. Again, we see here that the dawn, the 10 nights, the even and the odd, by the night as it passes, this is a profound oath. God is making an oath by all these things that He created. But we know that the dawn is sure to come. I mean, every morning it will never fail. It will come, and sun will rise, and then will set and come again. That's one thing that we can take for granted, that this is 5 o'clock tomorrow morning, the sun will rise. And during the winter months, it's probably 7 o'clock. People have means to calculate that by now. The 10 nights, these are the last 10 nights of Ramadan, as we see in the footnote, wherein many believers retreat to the mosque. Surah 2, verse 187. These are, in Surah Al-Baqarah, these are the verse that talks about the fasting that is instituted by God since Abraham, but then revised in the Quran to allow intercourse between the spouse during the night of Ramadan, except when one decides to retreat to the mosque during the last 10 days of Ramadan. So we know that the 10 nights is the last 10 nights of Ramadan. Even and the odd, we are talking here about mathematics, as we know. The proof that God has chosen to use to prove His word is through mathematics. Even and odds are numbers. We are talking about the numbers, and number 19 is the number that proves that the Quran is the word of God. And therefore, the oath by this even and the odd, these are all numbers that constitute mathematical structure and position of the Quran. Indeed, this is an awesome oath. By the night as it passes. So we know why this is a profound oath. God says that for people who possess intelligence, people who dare to use their thinking to think about the Creator and find that there is a profound proof behind it, then these are people who possess intelligence. Have you noted that what your Lord did to Ad? Hiram, the town with tall buildings, there was nothing like it anywhere. Number 9. Also Thamud, who carved the rocks in their valley, and Pharaoh, who possessed might. They all transgressed in the land, they spread evil throughout. Consequently, your Lord poured upon them a whipping retribution. Your Lord is ever watchful. 15. When the human being is tested by his Lord through blessings and joy, he says, my Lord is generous towards me. But if he tests him through reduction in provisions, he says, my Lord is humiliating me. Wrong. It is you who brought it on yourself by not regarding the orphans, and not advocating charity towards the poor. 19. And consuming the inheritance of helpless orphans, and loving the money too much. So, we've seen here the history of the previous generations, what they did and what the consequences that they received from God. One thing that is interesting to me is Pharaoh is mentioned in the Quran many times, but I think, I haven't done serious research on this, but I think Ad and Thamud is mentioned very often. Almost, every time there is a mention of the previous generation, there's Ad and Thamud. And we also know, for instance, Sodom and Gomorrah, people of Lot, they are also mentioned in the Quran, but not as often. And I used to wonder about that, and I see that probably, what we see around us happening, tornado, flood, or these are all that happens to the people of Ad and Thamud, earthquakes, something that happens very often that most people don't think anymore as God's retribution. They think this is a natural phenomenon. People don't see the parting of the Red Sea anymore, or the city turned upside down. But people see tornadoes, people see floods, earthquakes, and I wonder whether that is probably connected to why Ad and Thamud is mentioned more often than others. Because these are something that, to us, it is the action of God, and things that happens not without any cause. There is whether that is probably connected to why Ad and Thamud is mentioned more often than others. Because these are something that, to us, it is the action of God, and things that happens not without any cause. There is something behind it. Why the earthquake happens in the place where the majority of people are idol worshippers. I mean, people who are killed in the earthquakes, if we record, the number of earthquakes, I have a book, how many people killed in this earthquake, in that place. Either they don't believe in God or they are idol worshippers. So, that seems to me a reminder that, don't take it for granted. This is a punishment from God. Most people don't believe it, but it is. Also tornadoes and these are things that happen to Ad and Thamud. Number 15 and 16 and 17 and on up to number 20 is
Better when it says, in every situation there is relief. It's a little softer than with pain there is gain. However,
I think that's the effect of the gymnasium.
Yes, no pain, no gain.
They have a big sign there. In every corner, everywhere you look, no pain, no gain. I can see it now. It affected me.
I'll always, I have to confess, think of it as with difficulty there is
Happens to be true though. For example, you mentioned the mosquitoes that attacked us in San Francisco. This happens to be one of the most memorable things that because
comments.
number 7 is telling you must grab every chance you can get to feed your soul. Every chance that has to do with God, you must grab it. You must remember that anything you do in this world that has nothing to do with God is a waste of life. It's a terrible waste of time. We do it only out of necessity. The reason we go to work is to make a living. But if there's anything that has to do, it does not have to do with God, it's a waste of time. So number 7 here, whenever possible, you shall strive, means you must never pass up a chance that you strive in the cause of God. A Friday prayer, a lesson, a meeting, a Quranic study. This is God's advice to you and me. Whenever possible, you shall strive. You must give God's commandments priority over anything else. Then if you have time, you do the other things. Go to work, make a living. And God guarantees that you make more money if you give up an hour of work, for example, for the sake of Friday prayer. God guarantees it in the Quran that you make more money. So it will be material gain as well as spiritual. God is the only one who dispenses provisions. Whenever possible, you shall strive, seeking only more. Fortunately, we are the people who need this advice. It's other people who need this advice. Because we automatically do this, alhamdulillah. And we have 3 profound introductions. The day and the night are profound signs, as you know. They remind us that the earth is hanging in space. And the male and the female. So these 3 profound verses tell us that actually this short surah is the secret of happiness. So it's very important to know which path will lead you to happiness in this world and forever, and which path will lead you to misery in this world and forever. So you see in verse 7, the path to happiness. Surah 54, if you remember, God says He directs you to happiness or misery. Controls that. And it is now established that material success does not bring happiness. So your works are of various kinds, and they will lead you to either path, happiness or misery. And what I wanted to emphasize is verses 5 and 18. Both of them talk about charity. In this short surah, 2 verses talk about charity, because it's a continuous process. Just like we feed, God wants to remind us that just because we continuously feed our body, how many times did you drink today? You drank water or coke or something today. You drank, you ate. You really take care of your body, your garment. So God is reminding us to take care of the real person, of you. To take care of you is a continuous process, just like the eating and the drinking and the sleeping and the showering, the things that you do for your body is a continuous process, and like the 5 contact prayers, continuous process. Charity also is a continuous process, because you continuously make money. And you have to set aside 2.5% for your relatives, your parents, and so on, just as indirect. The 3 verses, 3 profound signs. This is common in the short surahs. We're seeing something that's very important. And here, the important thing is the secret of happiness. If you do these continuous processes that develop your soul, God promises you happiness now and forever.
So these 3 verses consistent with the text that first of all, your words are for various times. Yes, because if something from out like this, like, and then you are the year after. Why God is
I keep forgetting, so I remind myself. I need to remind myself not to be lax. So every time you receive money, you just have to cut out 4-5%. It's a very good investment. The reason God repeats it is because God knows that we tend to forget or neglect to do it. We seem to do the 5 daily prayers easily. Charity is something that we keep and forget, because we get involved in spending before you know it, your money's gone. You didn't set aside the 2.5%. So the reason this is also repetition is of psychological importance. Circumstances.
Yeah.
There are times when able-bodied people with perfect qualifications somehow they just go weeks, maybe months without a job. They just don't seem to be able. You have to be extremely kind to them. There may be exceptions. Some professional beggars. Different issue. Maybe you have to use discretion, but remember you cannot be suspicious. And, you have to know. Tucson is the food bank. Tucson is the food bank, but sometimes you meet these people in the street. They come to your door. You have to act. There's a commandment here not to reprimand the beggar. So you have to be careful. I'd rather be sucker than and the practice commandment. Right. Right. I mean, this is the least you can do is not reprimand. Because, of course, unless you know personally what he or she is doing. You have to start with your surroundings, so your parents, your relatives, and if there's somebody here at the mosque that needs it, that will be take priority over a children's organization. Probably takes a lot of money from United Way, and they have a lot of professionals living off of that too. I investigate. I find that the food bank is very clean. They don't have shysters, organizers, and they really do give food to the poor. So this is. There are some other organizations that take millions of dollars to homeschool the children, abused battered wives, abused this and that. United Way pays the millions of dollars, and there are organizers and administrators who take up to 90% of that money to administrate. So you pay salaries. Yeah,
there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with giving to that. If you don't use it as like over and above zakat to any of those things, because I give to a lot of animal organizations, but I don't count that as zakat.
Yeah, but the system of the Quran is you start with your own family, and then you go further and further. Priorities are set in the Quran. Ben, is this something that? This is your family. Okay, I'm glad you brought this up. Some people think that this surah was directed to Muhammad personally because of your Lord will give you. He found you astray and he guided you. You will not tell the Muhammadans to confess that he ever was astray. Ahmad Ryan is laughing because I had my father. It was for 4 months here, and I wanted him to say it. Muhammad was astray, and he wouldn't say it. We had lots of funny encounters. Because when they show him all the other verses showing that Muhammad did make mistakes, he will say, okay, so he was astray. And then 5 minutes later, he changed his mind. So the way he said, okay, he was astray, that became something that made us laugh every time I remember. But anyway, he found you, and they will not agree that he was astray. So I chose to make the translation general. He found you poor and he made you rich. Because it's applicable for everybody. If they want to apply it, ironically, most of them, almost all of them, apply it to Muhammad, but they will not accept verse 7. And almost all the tafsirs and interpretations, they attribute this surah as if God is talking to Muhammad only.
They misinterpret this verse 7, a problem, a very big problem for them, because their idol become, before prophethood, it was straight. And then they want to interpret, one of the most famous interpretation is, when he was child, he lost his way, and God showed him the way.
What does it say here?
That's exactly what you said. It says that he was poor and God made him rich. That's exactly what it says.
ووجدك ضالا فهدى. They say God lost his way when he was child.
No, here. Basically, what's the English version?
It must be a very short translation. This is the reason.
No.
Also, all of us will be orphans at one time or another, unless we die before our parents do. But God always provides a home.
Kind of like most of the next surah, they do the same thing. But they kind of apply to everyone. We were excitable and worries. You were worrying, but when you believe, then you put your trust in God and you submit to God. As submitters, we realize that God knows what is best for us, and we put everything in God's hands. So we don't worry anymore, and you put yourself, respond to yourself. You find that it is not worth it to get angry. There's nothing in this world that is worth getting angry at. So this can be also general. So we go to Catherine in Surah 94. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. We seek refuge in God from Satan, the rejected. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. Tonight we start at Surah 81. And our teacher is Eddie. We're going to start right away.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. When the sun is rolled, the stars are crashed into each other. The mountains are wiped out. The reproduction is halted. The beasts are summoned. The oceans are set aflame. The souls are restored to their bodies. The girl who was buried alive is asked, for what crime was she killed? The records are made known. The heaven is removed. Hell is ignited. Paradise is presented. Every soul will know everything it brought. Here, there is a general description of end of the world and resurrection, but I think there is no sequence between these events. Only description both events and both two events. God messenger of the covenant, I solemnly
stars crashing to each other. We can read it.
Yes, I know, but it is so obvious. What can I say?
The mountains are wiped out.
Yes, because obvious. The harmony, yes. The system will be collapsed, and there will be no gravitation. There will be no any system, and everything will collapse, will catch each other. And this a description of end of the world. Very obvious.
So there'll be an implosion.
What?
There'll be an implosion. That sounds like the stars will crash into each other.
During
I don't want to give you. I'm not giving you a rough time.
No. I don't worry.
In Surah 39 it says, "When I fold
yes.
the heavens like folding of a book."
Yes.
This is it. So it's an implosion. They are expecting an implosion.
There are two theories about end of this universe, scientific theories. According to them, one option, the universe, because universe is expanding, if the expand speed is more than a critical point, the universe cannot come together how do you say, forever it will expand. And but another theory is the maximum speed is below the critical point, and then after a while, many years later, they say thousands of years or billions of years later, they will come together. For example, if you threw a stone from the earth more than 11 kilometers per second, its speed 11 kilometers, more than 11 kilometers per second, this stone will not come back to the earth. But if the speed of the stone less than 11 kilometers per second, it will come back many kilometers later. It will stop and then will fall on the earth. This is gravity law. And now from Quran we understand, we know that the second theory will occur. This theory is called as what is the opposite of open?
Implode.
Implode. Yes, universe theory.
But what is the Quran's theory?
Quran theory is implosion. They will come together like the paper of the book. And yes, this is a description of implosion.
Why will it happen?
Creation where explosion. What?
Why would the implosion happen?
Because God will say, be, and it will be.
So, it's not just that. Anybody wants to pitch in? Yeah? Emily?
God will come.
Yes, there you go. You have to speak fast, yeah? Okay, now we're talking. So this implosion will happen because
when God comes, God's physical existence, when God comes, this universe cannot stand for God's physical existence, and then they will implode. Do you have any question about this part? If you ask, we can explain. But
well, it's like pulling teeth, you know. It's got the information there, but you have to pull it out.
Yes.
So do ask him questions.
The girl who was buried alive is asked for what crime was she killed. From Quran we learn that Arabs, they were humiliating women, and they were not glad with girls when they see girls as a baby. They didn't want girls, and they were killing them. And this was a very great crime, offense. And also now we can see the extension of this understanding in many places in the world. Girls are also the second class of human beings. And I think killing of girls was because of economy. boys, when they become adults, they could gain money or they could work, but girls that time they couldn't do it, and this was one of the reasons. What? These are
He's waiting.
Yes. What's your question, brother? Why?
Are the beasts called work? They are called work. What's that refer?
There are two ways to interpret, to understand this. One way, the beast, when a big event, explosion or a great shock happens, from fear they come together. They become together. This may be expression of this event, or in hereafter, God also will resurrect all animals.
Yeah, the second interpretation is correct, because in Surah 6, verse 38, you can see that remember,
yes.
So it's the same word being used, that all the animals will be resurrected and will be gathered on the day of resurrection. So if you had a pet or anything, you will meet them all on the day of judgment.
I have a comment which I'm not sure is accurate. First two verses sound very similar also to what is described as a black hole phenomenon, where a star changes its size very quickly and then shrinks as gravitational mass becomes so great that it actually draws other stars in.
Yeah, the black hole phenomenon is a minute representation of this. This is a universal black hole. It's similar to it. But I want to go back to the 8 and 9 that Beth was asking about. I don't like to depress you, but this is actually still happening in Saudi Arabia today. I call it a cultural disaster. And this is why when they walk into this mosque, they're shocked to see a woman's hair. And they run away. I mean, they cover up the woman, and they regard them in such a disastrous way that they used to kill the baby girls in the past. And I had a Saudi friend 10 years ago who went back to Saudi Arabia, and he came back. He was almost crying. He said, "You can find baby girls in garbage bins now." He was from Medina, so this is in the Prophet's city. It's very depressing, but that's what I mean. How will you change a cultural behavior like that if the Quran didn't do it? I mean, what is going to do it? But this will make you understand why they are shocked when they walk in here, and they make up stories like in Masjid Tusan, the men and the women pray side by side, which is not true. And they make up things like women lead the prayer at Masjid Tusan. It's just they have this severe complex that even today these things happen. They don't have accurate records of pregnancies or even births in Saudi Arabia. So this is why it is significant that it is mentioned in this surah and mentioned in other places in the Quran. The girl who was buried alive was asked for what crime was she killed. And of course the hint is for those who commit this horrendous crime. It's a demonstration of stupidity. So believers don't have that. I come across believers once in a while who prefer to have a son over a daughter or something. And I really suck it to them. when they come up with that, because there's no preference whatsoever. As far as God is concerned, it may even be the other way around. In fact, there are sayings, I think here in the States, maybe even other countries also, that say what the girl brings a son, but the son is taken away by his wife, some to that effect. And,
Your son marries his son, your daughter marries his.
Right, something like that. I've heard it in different ways, said in different ways. So, This should be brought out. It's such a horrendous crime that the Quran gives it a lot of attention. It also reflects the kind of mentality that exists there, even now. Any comments, please? Exactly, yes, exactly. I'm glad you mentioned that. Yeah, even the women who survived are actually buried alive. The way they demand that they're covered up this way. Ismail just came from Iran, and how does the streets look like? The ladies, they have to be covered up. How is the society in general accepted? Is there any kind of rebellion among some people? Is it a widespread rebellion? Is it limited to the people? Are the people accepting it? Like, let's take the ladies who used to walk in the street in European clothes. Now they have to cover up in this black stuff. So they're forced, because otherwise they'll be killed. So did you hear over there? Ismail says that there is rebellion against this forced dress in Iran, but they can do nothing about it. If they speak up, they'll be killed. So it is terrible oppression. This is a form of burial. You're being buried alive. What's her name? 60 Minutes. What's her name? Diane Sawyer. Diane Sawyer went to Iran, and she had to, before the plane landed in Iran, she had to cover up her head, and she made a big deal out of this. And it's a double standard. Go ahead.
I was shocked to find out that even today, some of the so-called Muslim countries first just out of sheer suspicion of keeping people close to guard out of the house, this thing they can't purpose for people to actually force on and murder their wives.
Oh yeah, their daughters.
People trying to rationalize this based on all the time they can't take their life. And there are frequent incidents of this type of thing happening, where the husband would say, I don't want you to know if there's something wrong with you, you may murder his wife, you may throw her out, and people take his daughter.
Well, I have on my desk a piece of news from the Arizona newspaper, where in Iran they ordered, in Pakistan, a judge ordered the execution of 6 people because of sex crimes. This is the headline. And when you read the article, you find out that this lady didn't like her husband, so she left him. Of course, according to the Quran, marriage is a contract between 2 people, and once out, the contract is invalid anymore. But they don't give this right to the woman, according to the so-called Islamic Sharia. So I don't know how many months or years later she married somebody else. Now her former husband complained, and they ruled that she and her new husband have committed adultery. So the judge ordered them stoned to death, and 4 of their friends also stoned to death because they knew about it. I have this on my desk. If you don't believe it, you can read it later. This is the kind of mentality that is where the women are oppressed. And we read in Surah 28 that God feels for the oppressed, and He makes it up to them. According to Hadith and Sunnah, the majority of inhabitants of hell are women. But I'm convinced that the opposite is true, because of the oppression that they undergo. When I served in Saudi Arabia for the United Nations, I came across a daily program where people send messages, and most of these messages were from women. I'm telling you, I cried. I actually cried listening to that program. Because a typical story will be a woman whose husband disappeared for 6 months or a year. She doesn't know where he is. She's grounded in the apartment or the house or the place that's assigned for her. And her in-laws bring whatever food or whatever that keeps her alive. She never leaves the place. It's just like a prison. And this is a typical story. And she's asking for help. Obviously, she snuck out a letter to that radio program. So it is a tragic situation, and I guess the abandoning the Quran is one of the reasons for this happening. Any other comments or questions? I just want you to know what is happening over there, because so we can thank God for the freedom we have here and the ability to practice the Quran. Edith, back to Edith. Verse 15?
Yes, verse 15. God's messenger of the covenant. I solemnly swear by the galaxies, precisely running in their orbits, by the night as it falls, and the morning as it breathes. This is the utterance of an honorable messenger, authorized by the possessor of the throne, fully supported. He shall be obeyed and trusted. Your friend, Rashad, is not crazy. He saw him at the high horizon. He is not holding back any news. It is not the talk of a rejected devil. Now then, where will you go? This is a message to all the people, for those who wish to go straight. Whatever you will is in accordance with the will of God, Lord of the universe. Look at the footnotes. If you add the number of the chapters plus Rashad, geometrical value of Rashad and Khalifa, you'll find it divisible by 19. And this refers to the message, because in verse 27, God says, "In huwa illa dhikrun lil alamin." This is a message to all the people. And it describes Rashad's experience how many years ago? 20 years ago, in 1971, when he was in Medina, in Mecca. He had an experience, a visual experience, and this is a description of this event.
I think if you go to this Appendix 2, it's 643.
In Appendix 2, there's a reference you have now. Now, in chapter 3, verse 81, you will see the prophecy about God's messenger of the covenant. And if you add them to the geometrical value of Rashad and Khalifa, you'll find 1311, which is multiple of 19. And this surah has number of 81, and you find in verse 19, God describes the messenger, and also if you add them up, is also divisible by 19.
This is, of course, very embarrassing to me, but I can't afford to hold back any of this. It's mainly for the future generation. Our generation may not be able to stand this kind of news. As for our people, God snuck it on us gradually, very slowly. So we were able to stand it. But it really is an awesome responsibility. I want to read with you page 643, Y81. I want to spare Eddie the shyness. Verse 81 and Surah 81. Number 16 here says, God's message of the covenant is prophesied in verse 81 of Surah 3. The addition of the grammatical value of Rashad, which is 505, plus the grammatical value of Khalifa, which is 725, plus the verse number 81, produces a total of 1311, 19 times 69. Number 17, if we look at Surah 81, which is what we're studying tonight, we read about a messenger of God who is powerfully supported and authorized by the Almighty, as we see in verse 19. Thus, verse 81 of Surah 3 and Surah 81, verse 19, are strongly connected with the name Rashad Khalifa. As you know, when the first hint came out in the first translation, authorized English version, a lot of people were up in arms, why authorized? Who authorized this? But the verse in Arabic here, verse 20, is very clear, authorized by the possessor of the throne, fully supported. And now we have these mathematical proofs, Quranic and mathematical. Number 18 on page 643 say, if we add the surah numbers plus the number of verses from the beginning of the Quran to verse 381, where the message of the covenant is prophesied, the total comes to 380, 19 times 20. And this is shown in table 6. You understand this number 18? You take the surah numbers and the number of verses from the beginning of the Quran to the place where the message of the covenant is prophesied. And this gives us 380, a multiple of 19. And as you know, 19 is our generation's sign. Number 19 says the geometrical value of verse 381 is 13148, which is a multiple of 19. This value is obtained by adding the geometrical values of every letter in the verse. Number 20, if we look at that portion of verse 381, which refers specifically to the message of the covenant, I have it here in Arabic. It says, a messenger will come to you confirming what you have. We find that the grammatical value of this key phrase is 836, 19 times 44. So this is the connection with Surah 81. This is why I couldn't afford, or to avoid writing in verse 22, put the name Rashad in parentheses there, verse 22. And some of you who are familiar with the initial announcement will excuse me for doing this, because I just can't afford to hold back. Those of you who are not familiar with that momentous night, I'd be glad to go over it with you again. And if you find that this is not acceptable, I don't blame you. It is very difficult to accept. But I will be very happy to discuss it with you if you have any reservations. And like I said, this is for the future generations. It will be easier for them. I have to share with you a story that will please the believers. We were staying at Farima and Amir Kuleni in San Francisco, and they have two children. Shaliz, she's 8 years old, and Paris, he's 6 or 7. After 2 days of staying there, the neighbor's kids came to the house and asked, "Where is God's messenger?" Apparently, the Farima and Amir's children were going to the neighbor saying, "Guess who's sleeping in our house?" And it reflected how it will be a lot easier for the new generation, because they don't have the holdbacks or the hang-ups that we have. They will grow up and they will look at the whole story objectively. They will look at the proofs objectively without anything holding them back. So it pleases us to see the people, the new generation. So this here, if you excuse me for putting it in, it is for the new generation. And I hope most of you will understand anyway. Okay, back to Adib.
Do you have any questions about this part?
If you have any questions, don't be shy, because you have to bring out all any doubts and kill them. Yes. It's interesting that I find some of these things happening without me paying attention, like he's not holding back any news. He's not holding back any news, because I'm not holding back anything. I want everything to be clear in the open. And then I read the verse and they say, yeah, this is what is happening. And the point that Lisa raised of obey and trust, he shall be obeyed and trust, it is not the person. It's obey and trust because we're receiving information from God. This is why God ties the commandment of obeying God and obeying the messenger together throughout the Quran. Because I'm just as excited as you when we receive new information that straightened everything that we were doing. We were doing lots of things wrong, and God's mercy sees to it that we changed our ways to the correct way. So this is where obeying and trusting comes. Your friend is not crazy. This ties in with the other statement. The Quran says, I've lived with you many years. In other words, this is a quotation in the Quran. Remember it? I forget what it is exactly. But what it says is that here is a person who's been with you for many years, and you know he's not crazy. Because a person who is not a messenger of God, who claims to be a messenger of God, will have to be crazy if he is not a messenger. Be a person who has no belief that he will meet God someday and will be asked by God about everything he's doing. Or he's a person who doesn't have any mental capacity whatsoever. And the statement that I've lived with you many years is because I got to know you, we know each other, and obviously I'm not crazy or mentally retarded or any. So this statement, your friend is not crazy, ties in with that. I stayed with you for a number of years. It is God's design to appoint messengers after the age of 40. This has been consistent, except for the Prophet Jesus, for special reasons. But every messenger was appointed after the age of 40. So he lived among his people for 40 years. They knew him as a normal person who's a merchant or a shepherd or going about his business. They know he's a normal person. All of a sudden he says, I'm God's messenger. And invariably they accuse him of being crazy. So he said, I lived with you so many years and you didn't know that I was crazy, so why do you call me crazy now? Going to examine what I'm saying. Yes? 10:10? 10:16, yes. 10:16, yes. So this is the idea. Because if a person lives with you for so many years, you know him closely, and you know very well he's not crazy, then he's either he's really a God's messenger, or he's a very, very bad person who is trying to trick God. It's one of the extremes. Nothing in between. Yes. Him at the high horizon. He saw him at the high horizon. The footnote 8123 says Rashad Khalifa was summoned to the high horizon as detailed in Appendix 2. And this has to do with the fact that I was summoned, and I was passive at the time, but all the prophets fulfilled their covenant, which is recognizing, acknowledging, supporting, and believing in the messenger of the covenant. Yes, it was on the high horizon. Exactly where I don't know, but it was out of this universe. It was in the place where the souls are, where chances are, it's in the seventh or the first universe. If you consider ours the seventh universe, that fulfillment of the covenant occurred in the first universe. And in the last conference, as you know, I shared it with you in detail, and I'm glad to share it with anybody in detail at any time. But most of you know, those of you who don't know it, I'd be glad to share it with you again. But briefly, I was summoned to the first universe. I sat in a place, and all the prophets, one by one, acknowledged me as God's message of the covenant. I was told they were all the prophets. I was not given the identity of any of them except Ibrahim, because of his resemblance to my own family. I was taken aback by this man who looks like us, my uncles, my father, and I was told there was no speaking at all mentally. I was told this is Abraham. Other than that, I was told that these are all the prophets. They included Noah, Jesus, Moses, David, Solomon, all of them. So this is what 23 refers to. If you read the Appendix 2, it will give you these details. Yes. Yeah. Where are the prophets now? And see what happens. When I take to the babysitter, take to the babysitter. Go ahead. You'll be alright there. In other words, those who are known to be to deserve guidance will accept this information. People who are willed by God to be guided. Does this make sense, Martha? Should be clear. So this is a message to all the people for those who wish to go straight. You know, when you pray every day, you say, Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim. Guide us on the straight path, or the right path. So those who wish to go straight will accept this heavy information. This is very heavy information. Okay, when you look at any person, there's an invisible stamp on their forehead that says heaven or hell. Okay, the person who stamped hell on the forehead, there is nothing can do to guide them. And the people who are stamped heaven, God knows, only God knows who is going to heaven and who is going to hell. So, for the person who is stamped hell or misguided, there is no way you can make them understand. The person who is stamped in heaven would see this and would accept it right away. They will see that there is nothing wrong with it. It is in accordance with the Quran. There is sufficient proof. They may hold their judgment for a while until they examine the evidence and so on. No, it refers to you and me and anybody. Whatever you people will is in accordance with the will of God, Lord of the universe. No, there's nothing I do. We've always talked about it. That when we are born, God knows already the people who did not side with Satan during that great feud. They didn't really side with Satan. Remember the khutbah, my last khutbah, about the two arrows? Okay, there's some people who went along with the crowd, but in their heart, they did not side with Satan. So these people deserve to be guided. They deserve to be redeemed. And they are put in circumstances that bring them in touch with this message, for example. When they are born, they are assigned to a certain house, certain parents, to grow up under certain circumstances, and then the result will be that they are guided, because they deserve to be guided. Next.
This is a lesson also to us leaders, because I think these people, when we talk about miracles, a lot of people say, where's power? And when you mention, I know I had an experience when I mentioned the Dr. Sean Davis message, it totally nullifies everything that's said. A lot of people who quote the Quran, really quote the Quran, and they say, where does this explanation come from? You say that God is too messenger. Well, they immediately just choose to push you the messenger. you need to depend on someone, you can't do it on your own. So this is both protection and mercy for the people who are also dying. Because one of the strategies that atheists really use is to tell you that you are incapable of standing up on your own, you need someone else. The authorization and the sign removes a doubt from your hearts that truly leads you. You know that the motivation and incentive is from God to receive God's message. And it's just striking.
It's an obstacle. It's an obstacle for the misguided. Say it again. Yeah, table 5 must be.
No, before it.
Yeah, it's from the previous
15.
page.
Must be 15.
This copy is just dealing with the number 81 because this is Surah 81. The locust playing havoc with the group here.
Who will be the lucky person?
Yes. Now Douglas said that this is lucky for us because actually we have no idea how lucky our generation is. So this puts us in a place where we can belong with the elite of the elite. The elite of the elite, or in the Quran, as-sabiqun as-sabiqun, those who are especially close to God are the people of the first generation. Whenever a messenger comes, Abraham or Ishmael or Jesus or Moses, it's gonna fly around and hit everybody. The elite, the elite of the elite are the people who exist at the same time when the message is new and the people are rejecting it and you are being persecuted for accepting that message, which is worshiping God alone, accepting the word of God alone. It's a very heavy responsibility, and the people who accept it are very, 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 I can do this forever, fortunate. Because they are the elite of the elite for eternity. And you're not born at this time by coincidence. There is a reason for it. Obviously you deserve it. But to say that we are lucky or fortunate is the understatement of the century. It is really a very, very exciting part of history, and I'm just talking as a person. So God happens to want us to know certain information to correct our path, and God's system, as we learn from the Quran, is that He selects one of us to distribute the information through one of us, and doesn't make this one of us any better or worse or special. There is no, and we have many lessons in the Quran indicating this. Moses, one of the great messengers, God sent a teacher in human form. He could have been a human. Probably he was an angel. But God didn't tell us if he was a human or an angel. The fact is that Moses existed, and there was another servant of God who taught him a few things. So it's just a system whereby God disseminates information to all of us. We are a very fortunate generation indeed. Alhamdulillah. Abdullah. I think we lived these very exciting times, and we've seen how the information comes as we needed it at the right time. before printing the Quran, we were working on the appendix about the 2 false verses, and Mahmoud Habib and Abdullah Harik and Ismail Barakat and Feroz Karmali and Gatut were coming with information. There was just pouring information coming. The evidence, very powerful and amazing. I mean, we just couldn't catch our breath. And now that the book is in the press, they are very quiet, aren't they? Do you hear anything from Mahmoud or Abdullah? No. But the information came at the right time. It was just amazing. I mean, I will start the computer and I will be working on this subject, and they will walk in with the information as I'm just about to put my fingers on the keyboard to type. This is what Abdullah is talking about. Information comes as we need it. And this is why we're so positive about God's science. We don't have doubts.